5 things you didn't realize about Alcatraz. Before we start, I would want you to hit that red subscribe button so that you never miss out on any of our videos. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Insane Worlds. 5 Controversial criminal concerns. If you haven't figured it out by these last couple of stories, the men shipped off to Alcatraz went there for a reason. They were the worst of the worst. That's not to say they were all horrible murderers or anything like that. No, it's not that they committed the worst crimes that landed them in the federal prison system's most notorious outpost. It was more about these inmates being the worst and most grave escape risks that got them shipped off to that tiny spit of land in the San Francisco Bay. As was the case with Morris, the Anglin brothers, and John Paul Scott, and many, many more, Alcatraz was the final stop after a long line of unsuccessful stints at other federal prisons all throughout the country. Most of the inmates who called Alcatraz home during its heyday in the middle of the 20th century were men who had previously been caught trying to escape other federal prisons, most notably the one in Leavenworth, Kansas, several major facilities across Florida, and the federal penitentiary that still stands in Atlanta. 4. Everybody wanted in. Even though the system's toughest and most escape-prone inmates may have been targeted for a transfer to Alcatraz, pretty much the entire federal prison system wanted to get in at one point or another. It's not because the prison was seen as soft or the time there easy. And the island location certainly didn't give any prospective inmates good vibes regarding some beachside paradise. Far from it. But the reality is that the Alcatraz of the real world was a much less difficult place to serve time than how it's been portrayed in popular culture. A big part of the reasoning behind that is the island's one-man per cell policy. The cells were very tiny, but because they were so small, each one could only hold one person. Inmates loved that because it meant they could let their guard down when alone. Locked up in solitary every night and for most of the day, they never had to worry about attacks from other inmates. 3. Rockin' with Capone. Among one of the very first crops of prison inmates to be transferred into Alcatraz was none other than the notorious gangster Al Capone. He got into the Rock less than a year after it was repurposed into becoming a federal penitentiary. Of course, the notorious mobster was serving a tax evasion prison sentence down at USP Atlanta. But the feds wanted to make a statement that Alcatraz was going to be where all the baddest of the bad dudes went, and Capone was a natural choice to be transferred there. Besides, he had reportedly been bribing guards in Atlanta for preferential treatment on the inside, and the feds were sick of the gangster having such an easy life when he was supposed to be doing hard time. So, off to Alcatraz he went in August 1934. Judging by all public accounts of the convict's time served there, it seems the transfer worked. 2. Birdman Blues. Everybody knows about the Birdman of Alcatraz. But what few don't realize is that he never actually had any birds in the prison. The infamous inmate's name was Robert Stroud, and he was first sentenced to prison decades earlier on a manslaughter charge after killing a bartender during a brawl. Then, in 1916, he killed a prison guard at Leavenworth Prison in Kansas and was sentenced to death. Eventually, President Woodrow Wilson commuted his death sentence to a lifelong term. He ordered Stroud sent to solitary confinement for it all. That, the feds intended, would be how he played out the rest of his shackled existence. With plenty of time on his hands and no human contact to help him get by, Stroud began to study birds in his Kansas prison cell. He started raising canaries and other birds as he was able to convince guards to procure them for him, too. 1. Activist occupation. After the Rock shut down in 1963, it lay dormant and unused for the better part of 6 years. That all changed in November 1969, though, and not by the government's hand either. That month, a group of almost 100 Native American activists sailed out to the island and took it over. They claimed the land as their own in an interesting and original way. Their leader, Mohawk Richard Oakes, cited an 1868 treaty that the U.S. government had signed with Native tribes granting them access to unoccupied federal land. Arguing that Alcatraz had been unoccupied since it had been left unused and abandoned for more than half a decade, Oakes's group staked their claim to the land. In turn, they demanded the official legal deed to Alcatraz. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen, because I'm sure you'll love them.